And now we'll answer the following questions. When did they evolve? Which is the dominant generation? Do they have true leaves, stems, and roots? Do they produce seeds? Do they produce flowers? What size are they? And what are some common examples?
So angiosperms, which are flowering plants, first started to pop up around the lower Cretaceous period. That's where the first fossils are kind of found. That was around 125 million years ago. However, scientists have began seeing a lot more around the middle Cretaceous period, which was about 100 million years ago. That's when they started kind of rapidly coming in to power.
Angiosperms are plants that produce flowers, and in some plants produce fruit. Now, angiosperms are the only plants that produce flowers, and the flower is the reproductive part of the angiosperm plant. Now, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of how the reproductive cycle of a plant is by using this fake flower that I got right here. Now, starting with these Q-tip-like structures right here, which is the stamen, which are organs that produce pollen. On top right here, these two balls are basically two pollen sacs and an anther, which is supported by a filament. Okay, now in the middle of the plant there's a carpel, which its job is just to catch pollen and produce ovules. Now the stigma basically is hairy, or aka sticky, basically catches the pollen. The style supports the stigma, and then at the bottom is the ovary, where the ovule is made. Now, diplocells produce microspores by meiosis, which are then developed into pollen grains, or immature gameotypes. Now, ovules form in the ovary, like I mentioned before, and meiosis produces megaspores, which become female gameotypes that include an egg, a cell with 2 nuclei, and 6 other cells. Now, pollinization occurs when pollen grains arrive at the stigma of a flower. Basically, the two pollen sacs release the pollen flies and lands in a stigma of some plant or whatever. Now, when pollen lands on the stigma of a flower, the style then forms a pollen tube inside of it, which connects the stigma to the ovary. Now, at the same time as the pollen tube is being formed, two non-flagellated sperms are being formed. Now, once the pollen tube connects the stigma to the ovary, the two non-flagellated sperms swim down to the ovary. Now, double pollinization occurs when the two non-flagellated sperm arrive at the ovary and then fertilize the ovule, which then produces a seed coat, an embryo, and an endosperm. Now, this is just a visual diagram of the reproductive cycle of the angiosperm plant.
What is the dominant generation of an angiosperm plant? The dominant generation of an angiosperm plant is when it's a sporophyte, such as this flower.
Do angiosperms have true leaves, stems, and roots? In short, yes they do. They also have flowers and often fruit. Since angiosperms are more highly evolved than algae, mosses, fungi, and ferns, their structures are more advanced, which allow them to thrive on land. These primary organs constitute the vegetative or non-reproductive plant body. Angiosperms have roots that hold the plant in place and take in needed minerals, water, and provide storage area for food. Angiosperms consist of two basic types of root systems, which are the primary root system and an adventitious root system. The primary root system is the most common type of system and consists of a taproot, or the primary root that grows vertically downward. The second type, the adventitious root system, differs from the primary in that its primary root is short-lived and is replaced within a short time by many roots that form from the stem. Angiosperms have leaves that are the major food makers for the plant because they are the principal sites where photosynthesis takes place. The basic angiosperm leaf is composed of a leaf base, two stipules, a petiole, and a blade. The leaf base is the slightly expanded area where the leaf attaches to the stem. The paired stipules, when present, are located on each side of the leaf base and may resemble leaf-like structures. The petiole is a stalk that connects the blade with the leaf base. The leaves of these angiosperms sometimes serve as a source for pharmaceuticals, fiber products, ornaments, and other commercial products. Angiosperms have stems that serve to hold the plants up, which means that, as we discussed in class, must contain lignin, the thickening agent that makes it possible for plants to hold themselves upright. Also, stems move the nutrients and water throughout the plant. The main stem of a plant is continuous with the root system through a transition region called the hypocaudal. So to summarize, do angiosperms have true leaves, stems, and roots? Yes, they do.
Okay, what size are they? Well, angiosperms can range from 2 millimeters to over 100 meters. So that's a large span, and in between, there's all shapes and sizes. In the following picture, you're going to see the Australian ash tree, which is over 100 meters, and then in the second picture, you're going to see how small the smallest one can be, which is the water mule at 2 milliliters, as big as the little sprinkles on donuts. What are some common examples of angiosperms? Well, there's tomatoes, there's grass, strawberries. What else we got here? Roses. Another example, sunflowers. What else? Some beans. And some potatoes.
Angiosperms. Do they produce seeds? Yes, they are enclosed inside an ovary, or usually a fruit. During meiosis in the sporophyte generation, two kinds of spores are created, microspores and megaspores. Both are created in a microsporangium. Most angiosperms contain both male and female spores, but some only contain one of the two. Do they produce flowers? Yes. Before fertilization occurs, the ovary has to undergo changes. In the ovary, there are several ovules. To make things simple, we will focus on one ovule. This ovule is a megaspore, or a mother cell that is diploid, 2N. It will undergo meiosis, which produces 4 haploid megaspores. 3 will disintegrate, and 1 will survive. That 1 megaspore will expand and go through 3 rounds of mitosis, resulting in 8 haploid nuclei divided into their own cell through cytokinesis, but only 7 cells are formed. 5 synagrids, the gray ones, which are unimportant, 1 egg, and 2 haploid nuclei, which are the mother cell. Pollination. Pollen can travel and land on a stigma through air, water, and pollinators. Fertilization. Pollen has a tube cell, red, and a generative cell, blue. The tube cell creates a tube down through the cell to the ovule. The generative cell generates 2 sperms that travel down the tube and into the ovule, which leads into double fertilization. 1 sperm fuses with the egg, the blue one, to make the zygote, and the other sperm fuses with the endosperm mother cell to make the triploid endosperm, 3N.